Hello, and welcome to Spotlight on Education. I'm Dr. Jamie Savedoff, Superintendent of the East Brunswick Public Schools, and your host for this program. My guests today are Mrs. Patricia Wright, the principal of Frost Elementary School, Dr. Sandra Singer, a school psychologist or a student assistance counselor at the school, and Susan Cohen, one of our third grade teachers. Today we'll be discussing a program on conflict resolution and tolerance that's been introduced last year at Frost Elementary School. And given the events of September 11th and the follow-up in our country since September 11th, this is a very timely program. In fact, in last week's Sentinel, the guest editorial was from an East Brunswick student, and the title of his editorial was "Teen Asks for Tolerance in Community." So I'm very pleased to have the three of you join me today and to discuss the conflict resolution tolerance program that's been implemented at the school. Let's start with Mrs. Wright. Could you please explain conflict resolution and how the program came into being?
Well, conflict resolution is really empowering students to solve conflicts on their own peacefully. And we try to give them the skills that they need to do this. And it came into being because when I arrived at Frost, which was last year was my first year, but when I arrived at Frost, we were in the second year of a 3-year grant by the East Brunswick Education Foundation. And that grant was entitled Reaching Out in Harmony. And I felt that the best way to build a positive school climate would be where students feel safe, where they feel secure, and where they feel comfortable. And the way to do that is to give them the skills necessary to solve the problems that they encounter every day.
What resources helped develop this program?
Well, Mrs. Cohen and Dr. Singer, myself, and another staff member were trained by the New Jersey Bar Foundation in conflict resolution. We, in turn, went back and trained the entire staff of Frost School in the steps of conflict resolution. We also, Dr. Singer and I, trained the staff in the issue of bullying and teasing. And we gave staff some essential lessons that they needed to teach the students in order for them to be able to deal with bullying, teasing, and the conflicts that arise on the playground, in the classroom, throughout the day.
The State Bar Association, do they make this training available to all schools, or was this something that you had to apply for?
The training is available to all schools free of charge. They have also started this year to have trainings on specifically bullying and teasing and having schools address that problem school-wide.
So now, how was this program implemented into the school-wide curriculum at Frost?
Well, it's actually not even considered a program. Mrs. Wright has taught us to work it into our culture, and we see it in health to begin with. Our textbook actually devotes the entire first chapter on conflict resolution, on dealing with self-control and how to have self-discipline so that you can work through conflicts. In ILA, in all the literature from K up to the high school, we always talked about how did the main character deal with the conflict, what could they have done. So now what we do is we say what iMessage could they have given, which is something that you'll hear about. And we say, well, what could we have done differently that might have avoided having that conflict? And they use the words that they've been empowered with from first grade all through the grade levels. In social studies, it's very easy, from the Indians to the settlers to the Civil War to the Holocaust. We learn about the bully or the person or the group that was causing the conflict and how different groups were able to react to it. And so they use the same words throughout all of the subjects. Through technology, we've been able to share some of the great lessons that we've had, PowerPoint lessons that have been created by some of the teachers, put them on the share drive, and then you can just download it and get some ideas that way. So it's all threaded throughout the entire curriculum.
So that's great, because rather than just say to the students, we're going to stop today and do conflict resolution, it's something that just permeates through the entire curriculum and is reinforced in every subject area.
Absolutely. It's never just that subject. It's not a subject unto itself.
Okay. Dr. Singer, last year was the first year of the program. Can you tell us some of the activities or the accomplishments of the students during the school year?
Absolutely. Well, we had many activities throughout the year, and in fact we started the year with Respect Week, and the children were taught what it means to respect others, and after that each class developed their own respect pledge. It was a song, it was a jingle, it was a poem, and then they had the opportunity to present their respect pledge to the rest of the class during opening announcements. So they had a lot of fun doing that as well. We also had an anti-bullying campaign, and the children were taught what it means to be a bully and what to do if someone bullies you. And they decorated the classroom doors with anti-bullying slogans and posters. And each child also designed their own anti-bullying button. And we had a spirit day where everyone wore their button, including staff members. And this is one that I wore. I think you did too. And to show our support of the anti-bully and how we're all together in a peaceful school environment. We also had the Kindness and Justice Challenge, where children were rewarded for their kind acts, and each classroom had a large jar, and every time they were caught doing something particularly nice to someone else, they were given a Hershey's Kiss to put in the jar. And once the jars were filled, and every class had jars, they were then given a kiss when they did something very nice. We also had, they also learned the steps for conflict resolution, and each classroom designated a peace area, so that if there was a conflict that did arise at some point during the day, children could independently go over and try to resolve their conflict. We also have a peer mediation program where 4th and 5th graders are selected by their peers to serve as mediators. These children are trained during the year to help others solve their conflict. And if children have problems during the day, they can ask for a peer mediator. And in fact, they're available during recess, and they can be identified by their T-shirt.
Excellent.
They even have it on the back.
Oh, there we go.
So,
How many peer mediators do we have in the school?
last year we had well over 20.
Okay.
And so we'll have probably more this year.
And did you find that many of the students would come to a mediator
Absolutely.
and ask them to get involved?
Absolutely. Many children asked for mediation. In fact, they thought it was very special and grown up to do something like that, to handle their problems that way. They were very proud. So it was successful.
No, it's very interesting because a lot of towns and communities now have mediation for adults when there were disputes. Prior to getting into a court situation, there are community residents who are designated as peer mediators, and they sit down with the quarreling parties, so to speak, and try to work it out so that it doesn't become a litigation or a court issue. So we're doing the same thing at a very young age, helping our children learn these kinds of skills.
Absolutely. These are lifelong skills.
Excellent.
I think that the peer mediation program was successful last year also because every student in the school learned the steps of conflict resolution. So if they couldn't solve a problem by themselves, when they went to the peer mediator, they were well aware of what steps that mediator would take them through. Not only that, but the High School Honor Society came down and painted the guidelines for conflict resolution on the playground, on a path going to the playground, so they could utilize the visual part of that.
How many students, I don't think we mentioned that, how many students do we have at Frost School?
Approximately 560.
Okay. So now, have the students been enthusiastic? What's been their reaction to these activities?
Well, like most students, they love being videotaped, and since many of these major activities have been videotaped, they're all looking to get their little piece into the screen and wave. And I think more so than just the particular activities, I hear a lot of spillover now. I have my third graders who were just second graders last year, and just the other day, somebody said, I'm going to tell. Whatever the conflict was, I don't know. And I heard somebody else say, I think that's more like tattling. And so they know those words. Those words are part of their vocabulary, to tattle or to tell, which is the one that you want to do or don't want to do. And if they learn it from first grade up, hopefully by the time there's fourth and fifth grade, we will eliminate that tattling piece, and that the children know that they need to tell when there's a danger involved, but that they can work it out through conflict resolution. Many of the students love the art projects, and they like to see their own work displayed, and they like to be part of the main event. So if we have assemblies as a whole school and class events as individual classes, and we highlight each student for their own individual success with the program, then it carries them right through the year.
We'll probably touch on this a little bit more, but you used a difference between telling and tattling, and I'm sure people out there don't understand the difference in this program of telling and tattling. Can you just briefly describe the difference?
Sure. What we try to reinforce is that telling is if there's somebody in trouble or somebody's going to get hurt or something bad for the children is going to happen, then it's important to tell an adult. Tattling is when you want to get attention drawn to yourself or you want to get somebody else in trouble because it's going to make you look good. And it's not that easy to clearly define it, but we do a lot of role plays, and we'll have the students say, was that tattling or telling? And through doing it enough times, they get to recognize the difference.
Looking forward, this year, second year implementation of the program, what types of activities or what can we expect this year in terms of the implementation?
Well, as I've tried to tell the staff, that this really isn't just an activity or a program or a series of activities. It has to be part of the school culture. So this year, once again, we started off with Respect Week, talking about the #1 rule at Frost being respect for everyone in the school community and what that really means. We also, the teachers, very quickly this year have been able to do the lessons on conflict resolution, which I should mention some of them really are to show children how the difference between being aggressive versus being very passive versus being themselves, just being able to be assertive enough to say, look, I don't like what you're saying or I don't like what you're doing. And the other one is on telling and tattling. That's a very important lesson. We also teach kids how to cool down before you get, before you get into trouble, before you make a decision that's too hasty. We teach kids how to take responsibility as part of a conflict. What was your responsibility in this conflict? And we also teach them to listen very reflectively to one another so that they really hear and empathize with the other side of the story. So there are really solid lessons that are the basis of this program. And once those, and as the teachers have said here, we're seeing the students have been taught this last year, and we're already seeing that it's just part of their language. And so as we review these lessons this year, it's just that. It's a review and reinforcement. But I think one of the most important things about bullying and teasing to understand is that a large majority of students, probably 85% of them, are what we call the silent majority. They're kids that are not bullied, they're not the victims, they're the onlookers. And they see what's happening. And I think that the reason this program has been so successful is that we've made the statement, we see it happening too, and we're not going to tolerate that kind of behavior at Frost, that we believe in respectful behavior. And we keep working with that 85% of those students to say, you have to come forward when things are happening and step up for somebody. And so this year our theme is Be a Hero. And how timely that theme turned out to be. But we have a whole list of activities. Every month we have an activity plan centered around what are the characteristics of heroes? What makes somebody a hero? And whether it's everyday heroes, community heroes, whether it's patriotic heroes, historical figures that are considered heroes, and students will be studying all different types of heroes, and in doing so always bringing it back to what makes you a hero in your own community. So that's what we're doing this year.
I think it's important to add that we brought this to the community. Last year when we started, we actually took one of the PTA meetings and had parents come in so that we could train them in conflict resolution. And the students did a little skit and taught the parents how to give and accept iMessages so that they could use the same language at home. And that piece brought the community and the school full circle, and the parents were very much appreciative of what are we talking about with this iMessage thing.
Well, since you brought it up and you've used it a few times, can you briefly tell us what an iMessage is? Because I don't think it's EYE, is it?
No, and
No.
some children think it means
Right,
I,
right.
but it means I, and it's where you're stating your feeling, like, I feel angry when you call me names and I want you to stop. So it's a way that they can express themselves, how they feel, and what they would like the other person to do.
Now, are there any other plans to this year to share what's being done at Frost with some of our other elementary schools?
Yes, actually, our team of 4 from Frost School that was initially trained and that did the turnkey training for Frost School is now going to meet with groups of 4 from each elementary school in the district, and we will be training them to be the turnkey trainers for their staff, and they will be going back to their elementary schools and really talking about the same lessons that we are. And I think really the most important part of that is there will be a common language, that by the time the students get to Hammarskjold, everybody knows what an iMessage is. Everybody knows the steps of the win-win guidelines. Everybody's on the same page as far as respecting one another and understanding what the expectations are for behavior. So I think it's a very positive move to do that.
And it's important to note also that we do have programs in place at all of our elementary schools that have some of the same features, but the common language and having children enter 6th grade from the 8 different elementary schools with some common conflict resolution is really what we're aiming at this time.
Absolutely.
We've talked about the teachers and the staff members recognizing and responding to these issues of bullying and harassment. How would a parent recognize if their child was either a victim or being bullied, or in fact was a bully?
Well, first we encourage the children to speak up if someone is bothering them or bullying them, and that it isn't tattling, it's telling. But very often children are reluctant to speak up, you know, whether they're fearful or embarrassed. Sometimes they keep it to themselves. So parents should be on the lookout if their child seems more anxious, fearful, withdrawn. Grades might drop. They might be reluctant to come to school. I think then they need to call us so we could investigate.
And this is if they were being bullied or
Right, if they were
you
being
know,
bullied.
afraid to come to school.
Right. It's hard for parents to identify when their own child is the bully. Because often the bully feels fine about it. The bully usually doesn't feel guilty or show remorse. Usually bullies have a fine self-esteem. So parents might be totally unaware that their child is bullying others. Their first clue might be a phone call from school where the teacher or maybe the principal lets them know that their child engaged in some kind of bullying activity.
Or how about in the neighborhood, perhaps?
Or, yeah, a
who-
parent might call.
Because we do have parents who come to us from time to time and ask us how they might approach a neighborhood situation, or
Yes,
the fact
that's
that they've
happened.
gone to a parent's house to talk about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do find is that sometimes the parent of a child who is, quote-unquote, a bully is somewhat reluctant to admit to that, or defends the child's behavior. Which is not always a good thing, obviously. How can we work with parents to recognize that we want to help their child who is exhibiting this bullying type of behavior?
Well, I think that for us we've set the tone that we work as partners with parents, and so that hopefully we've established that open communication and feeling of trust between the school staff and our parents. And when children get involved in some kind of bullying activity in school, they have an opportunity to think about it, and they write down on this piece of paper that says think about it, and they write down what they did and why it might have been wrong and what they could have done differently next time. So it's very helpful when we speak to parents. We could tell the parents, this is what your child admitted to do in doing, so that parents are much more likely to accept their child's role in some kind of bullying activity if the child admitted it, and usually they do.
Yeah, they usually do.
They usually do.
And we talked about the presentation to the PTA and to parents, and we talked about how the students are receiving the program. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the 560 sets of parents that we have out there and guardians?
The parents have been very, very positive about the program. Overall, they see a very positive school climate. They, through the unfortunate instances recently, on September 11th, I had some parents come to pick up their children, and I talked to quite a few of them in the hall and said, you know, they're having a perfectly normal day. They really weren't aware of what was going on yet, and you know, they're safe. And I've gotten many responses from parents who said, you know, I'm just going to leave them here. They feel that their children are safe, and they feel that when their child has a problem, that they have somebody to go to, and they have somebody to talk to about it. So they do see a difference. We did get a lot of laughs from parents who came in and said, you know, if this child gives me one more iMessage, and which is when we decided to have the parent training, and it was fabulous because the parents can actually reinforce this at home, and several have said that it's really helped them to solve conflicts at home also.
Dr. Singer, what are parents doing at home to reinforce the program, or how can they help reinforce the program?
I think they can certainly reinforce the program by encouraging their children to use those skills when a conflict does arise, to use those iMessages, to have children cool down when there is a conflict and then come back and brainstorm what kind of solutions they could come up with to solve it, and then come up with some kind of compromise or alternative solution that everyone's happy with.
I do want to touch on one last thing. I had the opportunity, the good opportunity last year to attend your end-of-the-year activity, the Peace Poll. Can you briefly describe that ceremony? Because I just thought that was one of the highlights of the school year.
Well, what we did was we ordered a peace poll, which said in the languages of everyone in our school was represented on that poll, may peace prevail on earth. And during the ceremony, students who spoke each one of those languages came forward and said that in their own language. We had the chorus singing. We had Assemblywoman Barbara Buono come and speak to the students about tolerance and about the program that we had at Frost, and about how important it is to solve conflicts peacefully. So it was a beautiful ending to the year. Even the students who plant in the garden, in the courtyard where we planted the peace pole, where we had the peace pole, they planted flowers that represented the colors of friendship and peace and love and trust and those kinds of things. So it was a beautiful ceremony to end the year, and I think the staff, the community, and the students felt very close, because as I said, this isn't a program, it's more of school culture. It's part of what we are at Frost.
Are you planning a culminating activity again this year?
Sure.
We're not going to tell you what it is.
Okay, well, I'm just... Okay.
Absolutely. And it will be something to do with our theme, Heroes.
Excellent. Anything to add before we end the program?
I just picked out a couple of lines from 5th grade reflections from last year after having gone through the program for a whole year. And I think 2 or 3 really sum it up. One child writes, "School's so cool now with that anti-bullying thing." And another child wrote, I'm glad to be at Frost. There are not too many fights this year. The win-win guidelines are all over the school. It's like everybody knows what to do. And I think that those three things just sum it all up.
It's a great note upon which to end. Here in the East Brunswick Public Schools, we're concerned today, as many schools are, with more than just teaching the 3 R's, reading, writing, actually it should be an A, arithmetic. But we have to be concerned with all, with the social development and helping children through very difficult times and a different world in which they live. And certainly now more than ever, we have to help children to find peaceful solutions, to communicate with each other, and to develop good social skills. Thank you for watching.